Beautiful. Welcome to the Beauty Way podcast with my gorgeous friend Pia, and I am going to hand straight to her this morning to begin.
Beautiful. I love to open up these amazing conversations, this co-created space, just with a little prayer, a little grounding, a little centering. Because for each of us, whether it's the two of us talking or for those listening, there is an availability for growth and expansion. And obviously, to grow and to expand and to evolve, that spaciousness is really important. So whether you are standing or sitting, I'm just inviting in a connection to your feet right now, like really noticing your feet flat on the ground. And then that might create a little elongation through the upper part of your body. You might notice that you can just extend a little bit even through the crown of your head. And it might feel nice also to stretch out your fingers so that all points of you, your feet, your hands, and your crown are just feeling that inner spaciousness. And just tracking 1 or 2 breaths in this moment without trying to shift your breath, just really noticing your full inhale and then your full exhale. And I'm going to offer just a little blessing or a little prayer. And you might like to double the length of your exhale as I offer these words, these frequencies. I call in the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 life cycles, and the 5 elements. I call in all beings of the highest light and the highest love that walk with us in this life and all lives, our ancestors, our maternal and our paternal lineage, all of these beings that have traversed the fields of this earth and beyond to support and guide this conversation, this space, and our openness to receive. We are so loved, we are so supported, and there are so many possibilities and potentials that are opening here now. And perhaps just feeling the beat of your own heart in your chest, the rhythm of your life force flowing in and around and through and with you. And I'm offering my heartbeat to this conversation, to this moment, and it might feel nice for you to do the same. Because to shift paradigms, it does take some energy and some heart coherence, and it is my hope that that is what we are all aligning to create the world that we feel fully expressed in, fully held in, fully supported in, and knowing that these states of being live and exist within us now. You might like to create a little intention for yourself for this conversation, a little moment of thanks for your whole mind body system or a particular part of you. And just taking one more long exhale out as we arrive back in this space together for this next sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for beginning us that way. So beautiful. And so that actually sparks my first question is, what can you say about the power of prayer and presence in your life, and how important is it?
So I have found it really powerful just to ground into these little kind of mini moments when I'm out in my world or even in my office, when I'm able to gather myself to myself and remind myself of my interconnectedness. And so I have found prayer really helpful. Number one, because it kind of creates a ritualistic aspect, and there is an offering of kind of thank you and blessings. It's like, thank you for your support. Thank you for being here with me. And so as someone who's come from, a very strong feeling of isolation and separateness and misattunement and not being, quite right in the world, when I started utilizing prayer more, it really helped me tap into the energy of unity, and that there was more than just me, and that I could call in what it was that I wished to receive. And I particularly like the 4 directions because, it doesn't matter which way I face, there's a new perspective, there's a new energy, there's a shift. And that's the same with the 4 life cycles and the 4 seasons and the 5 elements. Each one just gives me a new awareness of another way that I could think, look, and live within this situation. And I believe it's perspective that creates the expansion for us to move forward from. You know, as we expand, we can choose our own axis of balance and equilibrium. And that's a dynamic dance for all of us all the time. And you know, where we place our attention and intention is where our energy is flowing. And so are we growing from that, or are we contracting from that? Neither is wrong or right. It just, for me, prayer has helped me recognize in which moment I am, in which season I am, which life cycle I am.
So beautiful. And I know for you, like, because I know that creating that sense of safety is so important. And when we, you know, when we come into that, when we have the prayer, what I was just tuning into then was exactly what you were saying, is that access to the multidimensionality, bigness of who we are. But the human can get a little bit scared of that because they've been taught to feel so alone. And so we're bringing presence into that moment. And as we do that, like you say, intention and attention, we're actually bringing all of that bigness into the body. And in that moment, there's this beautiful merging that happens. And we go, oh, it's actually not scary to receive the bigness of my existence. So that, thank you. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Um,
Could I just add one
yeah,
more thing there? So
yeah, for
when
sure.
you think about when we feel safe, or when you feel into what safety is, for me, that there's like a spread of ourselves. Yeah, like we feel comfortable to kind of spread out and to kind of sit and relax into the spaciousness. Whereas if we're feeling unsafe, there is a contraction, a defensiveness, a pulling away from. And so again, like you know, just a different way of saying what you just said, just to help it
Mm,
land for people, that we can utilize prayer to allow our energy, literally our vibration, our energy, to create that shift. You know, vibration and energy are manifestation. So whatever we're manifesting in that moment, is it coming from that feeling of more parts of us feeling safe to expand into the moment? And it also gives us that opportunity to notice where we're withholding, contracting, and bracing. Again, neither
mm.
is wrong or right. It's just the noticing of it. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So how have you arrived at this place where you're so attuned to the body and its cues? What has brought you to that place, and actually allowed you, besides prayer, what's allowed you to find more space in the resting and
Mm.
safety in the resting?
So my journey has been around having a deep desire to investigate and discover why it was that I felt so unsafe. And I didn't even have the words for that when I was growing up. And you know, it wasn't really when I was just over 30. My husband at the time had just left me, and we had been married for 15 months. I was shocked. Was not expecting it at all. I never have received a reason for that leaving. I've never was told that, you know, I wasn't loved, or that there was another person, or there was just no particular reason. There was nothing for me to grasp onto and hold.
Yeah,
And
that's okay.
it was very defining though for me. And I always go for the deep medicine journeys. I mean, it was helpful because it finally allowed me to really land that the only thing in life that I can truly control is my response to it. And that was when I first really started diving into my self-responsibility, self-mastery, and self-accountability journey. Whereas before that, I feel like I was still finger pointing and, you know, blaming my childhood and blaming my parents, or, you know, like just, you know, for every finger pointed out at another, we've obviously got three turned around back at us. And I started looking at the three that were turned around back at me. And so it was a really slow, long, gradual process. And of course, I feel like I've learned some things in a slightly skewed order that I actually teach people the other way around now when I'm working with my clients and with my students. I mean, I do understand that my journey has been perfect. And at the same time, so how I first started was I started moving more into yoga practices, and I had come from a high level sports background. So it was like go hard or go home. That was pretty much how I lived my life at that point. You know, whether I was partying, whether I was working, whether I was playing sport, it was a go hard, go home principle. So when I first started doing yoga after this split with my husband at the time, I was doing Iyengar yoga. And for anyone who knows that style of yoga, it's slow, very opening, and you hold a position in with support, with props. Not once in my life had I ever had an experience even like that. It was similar to that. And I was working with a divine masculine teacher who was so soft and open and very balanced in his masculine and feminine energies for his space holding in these classes. And so that was a very potent start point. And although I had been interested in some other, I guess, in inverted commas, alternative practices at that time, my level of experience with them was still quite limited. And that was when anytime I had spare money, I would invest in acupressure, Reiki, acupuncture, like all sorts of different therapists to allow me to access my heart more. It was also the first time in my life where something, disturbing to my field had occurred, and I didn't choose to go down the drugs and alcohol route, partly because I couldn't afford it. I literally had no money. And I also was living quite far away from my normal friendship group and my old anchors. And so it allowed me the opportunity to connect. I had 3 dogs at the time, 3 staffies. They were like my little tribe. They were my absolute joy for my heart. And we spent a lot of time grounding at the beach. We were in the water a lot. I was living not too far from the Victorian coastline and at parks. Like I was either working, playing sport, or with my dogs. And that kind of structure without the lean into substances that used to get me out of my body helped me to arrive more fully in my body over time. And then my extensions into learning continued, like I had already studied NLP at that point, neuro-linguistic programming. But then I decided to study to be a naturopath. I'd already, I think, studied Reiki. I started studying Qigong. I studied feminine embodiment yoga. After I finished naturopathy, I thought it was going to help me in terms of answering a lot more questions, but I ended up having so many more by the time I finished. So many more. And I am an investigator martyr in the, that's
Human design.
my human design. And so I do have an endless array of questions that I love to dive into. What I finally understood at that point, because I had come from a skin and beauty therapy background, and looking after skins, I was like, oh God, it's not just the external, there's so much happening on the internal. That was part of my drive to be a naturopath, so that I could support people through their gut health. And then when I finished my degree, I realized that the nervous system is in charge of gut health. If it doesn't matter how many supplements and dietary prescriptions or lifestyle prescriptions I create for someone, if they don't have a handle on their nervous system, they don't have a handle on their gut, they don't have a handle on their hormones, nothing's going to work. So then I started getting into trauma-informed therapies, somatic-based therapies, and nervous system regulation at a really deep level. And so those studies then allowed me to answer even more pieces of my own journey and allowed me to settle even more fully into my body, which I'm still learning that practice. I still have times. Sure. I feel like that's never going to end for me, partly because of our core, whatever core imprints we decided to take on when we were little, that's the old familiar pathway of our whole mind body system. And so the journey of, reframing that and retuning and, rewiring new nervous system pathways. And that means not just nervous system, but our whole body needs to be aligned to those pathways. I feel like that's the dynamic dance of life. And, I'm playing it. I'm in it.
I love you sharing that story, because as I'm listening, like, I know that you and I have the same keys in our activation sequence in the gene keys, which is on the outside of the sequence, right? And you're saying what led you to this, this life you live now. And it's so similar to mine, like I was in the army. The first yoga I found was Iyengar yoga. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I didn't realize at the time, like, that it was opening my heart. I just knew that it was coming into my body. And then just choosing to do all these practices and have all these experiences and therapies that were actually helping me attune to my body, and then arriving at this place where I've got all of this experience because I've used it with myself. My intention originally was to heal myself and then to be able to help, and then naturally it falls out where we help others. So I love you putting all those little pieces together.
I also, I really want to acknowledge both of us here, and for anyone else listening that knows that they're walking the talk, I have also paid money to people that I thought at the time were embodied in their teachings.
Mm.
And I feel like that it didn't, I mean, it didn't screw me up. It was just part of my journey. It's helped me reflect and understand that when people are fully embodied in their truth and in their wisdom, that felt experience is something that other people can pick up on without even having to pay money. Like
Yeah.
they can just remember that themselves. And so yeah, I feel like it's the embodiment of that wisdom. And I don't know, honestly, someone who is deeply embodied in their wisdom that hasn't been through the opposite end of feeling
Yeah.
disembodied and separate and alone. You know, like that's how we get to regather our pieces. It's that full spectrum of life. You know, it's the you know, the mountain peak and the valley low, and our ability to be able to love ourselves within all parts of that journey. And I didn't love myself for a very long time,
Mm.
and now I have full respect, full love, full honor, full value for all past versions of self. Man, she did it really tough, and I'm grateful that my now and future versions of self never have to do that again, because she has done that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And such a great point that you make. Like, I I wake up most mornings now and I'm like, I feel great, but it's not because I'm just trying to push away any bad feelings. It's because I know what it feels like to be at the depths and the doldrums of existence, and I can bring that experience. I can bring that experience with me. And yeah, I feel that I want to say for anyone listening is that, you know, these stories that we're sharing, they are actually, like you said, they are so common for people who are embodied in the beauty way. Essentially, like, walking the beauty way doesn't mean that we're just like living love and light all the time. Well, we actually are living love and light all the time, because we recognize that the light encompasses all of the darkness and all of the ickiness and all of it. So I guess my question is, like, how do you weave this way into your existence, into your life on a daily basis?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to just add that embodiment is actually being able to embody all of it. Like
Yeah,
that's
totally.
actually what embodiment means. It's not just the joy and the pleasure and the happy bits. It's the icky, you know, shitty bits as well. So that is truly what embodiment is. And so how I bring this into my life every day, I have a lot of different practices, obviously, that I can tap into. You know, I'm grateful for all the things that I've studied and all the masters that I have learned from, for that very reason, because I am a little bit neurodivergent and I'm not very good with sticking to exactly the same routine and structure every day. However, saying that, my routine and structure is always aligned to dawn. From a naturopathic lens, from a hormonal lens, from a biochemical rhythm lens, it is literally one of the most important things that we can do to influence in a beautiful way the biorhythms of our body. It sets us up for our day. For a spiritual reason, you know, like I am facing east, I am, you know, connected to the sun, to the beginning of a brand new day. For me, it's about amplifying my appreciation in that moment. You know, not necessarily more than at any part of the day, but I am activating my breath work. I'm activating my connection through the lower part of my body, the upper part of my body, and I do some stretching. I'm also with my puppies. And for anyone who has never met me before, I'm obsessed with dogs, and particularly my
Yeah,
dog. I
cheers.
absolutely, I adore them. I love them. They bring so much joy to my heart. And for me in my life, I wouldn't be on this planet without my dogs. You know, like I'm so deeply grateful for the lessons in unconditional love and presence and non-judgment that they have brought me. And so when I'm with my puppies, like I cannot find it easier to tap into joy, basically. So, you know, we always have fun. They're always smiling with me. You know, I'm walking through the fields, listening to the birds. I'm allowing like the sounds of the morning to bring me that feeling of harmony. And so that is how I start my day every single day. And then from there, my regulation practices. And just to be, you know, really clear with everyone, I have many different things that happen every single day that throw me sideways off my intended path. Like every single day, there's chaos in my life, and I feel like, because I am that sort of person who has come from chaos, my familiarity with chaos is so high that I tend to live a life where that is consistently present. It's like my barometer for it is available, I guess. And so I live on a farm, and we've got a lot of different animals. There's a lot of different movement. There's a lot of different people coming in and out. And then I have my days where I'm also looking after clients that might have some really complex health things going on, or I might be preparing for a presentation and diving into research. And I can get quite activated in these things, and I can get very focused. And when we're like really, zoomed in, obviously we're in more of a sympathetic nervous system drive, like where more of my body is mobilized for doing something. And so my reminders to myself is, okay, cool. That's beautiful, Pia. Can I come back into being right now? What does being feel like? And how many more parts of my body can I access in this moment? When I'm really focused, I'm usually just focused on the thing, whatever the thing is, the event, the experience, the conversation, the person. And even right now, even as I just said that, I'm just feeling my feet on the floor. I'm just noticing my belly as I'm breathing. I'm just noticing where my jaw's at. I'm just noticing my tone of voice and my breath rate. And all of a sudden, more parts of my body are involved in this moment. And so the more parts of me that I bring into any given moment, the more parts of me that I feel like belong to that given moment. And I feel
Oh, I
like,
love that.
yeah, and I feel like I have access to more wisdom. And the more parts of me that belong to me in any moment, the
Yep.
less externally attached I am to belonging to other people, events, experiences, validations, conditions, all of those things, because I'm
Yeah.
belonging to more of me. And
Yeah.
so that's
So beautiful.
part of my regulation practice during the day. So
Mm.
I find I guess to answer this in a more simple way, how I am able to access that is that I become aware of my posture, like literally, like how am I sitting in this time and space, and how would I like to engage in a more intentional way with my posture. And then as soon as I'm engaging with my posture, I'm engaging with my breath in a different way. And then I might start becoming even more aware of different parts of my body, like naming and identifying different sensations, different feelings in my body, and then I could go from there. But that's kind of my regulation practice over and over and over and over again during the day, is to bring more parts of me to the present moment.
And what I love about that is, in that practice, what you're actually saying is that you're constantly coming back to self and saying, okay, self, how are you feeling? Body, how are you feeling? Just constantly checking in with this body. That so many like spiritual practices, there's that realm of spiritual thought that's like, you've got to get out there, you've got to get away from your body. And what you're saying is that the blessing and the beauty is actually in this body. And I love I just wanted to go back to what you said about your morning practice, because no matter where one lives in the world, they could do that. They could face east and connect with the sun, because it's me that is creating this experience for myself. And so I'm tuning into what brings me joy, what brings me love, what helps me to feel all those beautiful feelings. And then that's what I'm taking into my day. And then I'm coming back to that periodically during the day and helping my body to feel safe with that. So yeah, I really love you talking us through that, because it just shows the power of going, hey, body, how are you feeling in this moment? What do I need to do to help you feel safer?
Yeah, and even for me, I just want to point out, I'll just tell a little bit more about my story as well. I found it so easy to disassociate. So I might have done a yoga class, and I might have been able to maintain presence for that yoga class, but outside of that, I wasn't able to. I'd go straight back into doing and being quite disassociated from my body, and like literally living in my body through the different things that I was choosing to do. And even sound healing experiences, meditation experiences. I did a lot of quantum work. I was constantly going out of my body and thinking that the best life was out there
Up
somewhere.
there.
And so it consistently, for me, I didn't realize this until later, I was kind of reaffirming to myself that in some way, shape, or form, that I was broken, this human was broken, that
Yeah.
needed fixing, or that wasn't good enough. And so it was kind of just keeping me stuck in this paradigm of like, my higher self, which is out there, is my best self. And if I could just be better, I could be more aligned to that version. And so it just meant that I was never good enough. Still, I was just keeping that consistent core belief alive without recognizing it. And so, I mean, I believe my higher self is me right now in this moment, because whatever perspective I'm able to tap into from all of my senses, from my body, that's what I'm living right now. And so when I bring more of my body into the experience, then I'm holding, in my perspective, even more capacity for love of that experience, for the beauty way, you know, and I'm able to really value which parts of my body might have resistance or bracing or contraction. And I didn't know for a long time that I didn't even know what safety felt like. So
Yeah.
you know, I honestly, like, I thought that I felt safe. Like, I thought that I felt safe with different people. And, you know, I'd go to lots of different, you know, sacred events where people would be like, I'm holding a safe space for you, basically implying that then it was safe for me. But again, I didn't understand that safety, you can invite it in somebody else, but at the end of the day, it's an embodied experience inside that person. And there are
100%.
different ways that we can identify what safety feels like. And for me, I did need practice with somebody else who was trained in that. And so that's kind of what I hold space for people now, because I remember it was such a revelation for me, just understanding why I found it so challenging to meditate. I found it so challenging to slow down. I found it so challenging to create space of being, because I just didn't feel safe to rest in my own body, because I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know how to name it. I didn't know how to identify it. I was so used to bracing patterns that it was very unfamiliar for me to soften and open. And I really want to just land that for people, because that was such a huge part of my life. And now I'm much more familiar with open and softness and allowing, that I can much more quickly attune to when I'm bracing. I notice quite quickly then that there's some parts of me that aren't feeling safe in this moment. I'm not being fully present with where they're at, to bring them up to speed that in this very present moment there's zero threat around us. My survival is not under pressure.
And that those little bracing moments are limiting our experience of the fullness. And when you were speaking,
Sorry, I just want to say they're not limiting. They're just an indicator of information. So I mean, sure, I don't believe all parts of us can fully expand into the moment. You know, even as I use my arms to fully expand, there are some parts of my muscles, tendons, and ligaments that are opening. And then I will also have some parts of me that are contracting to hold that opening. So I just want to acknowledge for people,
nice. Got it.
It is not limiting. It's just another piece of information. Like, literally, it's inside my body. The formation of my body is helping me to acknowledge where are some parts of me that are integrated in this moment, and where are some parts of me that aren't.
Love it. And when you were speaking, what I was getting as well was this aspect of relationship with the body. You know, it's building the relationship that we haven't been taught to build. And if you don't have a relationship with your breath, of course you've got to create that relationship. Like, you've actually got to notice it and then give it space and invite it to move through your body and to feel it and all of those types of things. And that's the opening as well, isn't it?
Totally. And this is the greatest challenge of the self-mastery and self-accountability journey, is the self-responsibility. Nobody else can do that for you. And obviously, you know, again, from a naturopathic lens, I have so many people who, you know, come to me with hormonal issues or immune issues or gut issues. They want to take the thing that's going to help them fix it. The thing that they've got to take is their own connection to themselves and building that relationship. Not another person alive can do that for us. Nobody else can connect to us the same way that we do. And so I can guide experiences with people, and I'm not in your body. I don't have all of your senses activated in the way that they are. And so that level of showing up for self, again, that's where it's important to unpack limiting beliefs around what does showing up for myself mean. Where am I bracing against showing up for myself? That's where somatic practices, you know, we might have parts of our body that are literally blocking us from being able to move forward to connecting to ourselves. And that's, again, where somebody else's guidance can be really helpful to start unlocking those pieces.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this wisdom. It's really been gold, and I know that people will be listening and there'll be little pieces dropping in. One thing I want to ask you before we start to close is, if you were standing in front of your 18-year-old self now, what piece of advice would you give her to take into the rest of her life?
Don't be scared of losing other people if you're not pleasing them. Be scared of losing yourself as you please other people. Because when I have that connection to myself, then the truth of my life continues to unfold. And yeah, she had no idea about that. Just constantly trying to please other people.
Gosh, imagine if we all were able to live from that place of pleasing self and fully embodying self from that time of being 18. What a gift it would have been. So yes.
And Lou, I just also want to acknowledge to everybody out there, I mean, if they're listening to your Beauty Way podcast, I know that they're interested in personal development, and acknowledging every little piece of the journey is a way of forming a relationship with ourselves, understanding our own self. And obviously everyone outside of us, even if we're focused more externally, there's still a mirror to different parts of us that, you know, maybe aren't fully integrated in us yet. Like, it's all perfect, it's all divine. And it's that forming of relationship and commitment to self. Like, when our body trusts that we're going to show up to learn its language and to listen to that language and to respond in kind, that's when I feel like things change really exponentially in our ability to love ourselves no matter what is going on. And I'm not saying my life is perfect in any way. I'm just saying that I am really happy with the imperfectness of it, because I'm loving myself through each moment. And I never used to have that ability because I didn't know how to speak the language of my own body.
Yeah. And that aspect of there is nothing wrong with me, you know, just allowing ourselves to recognize there is in no moment is there anything wrong with me in any moment. I don't know. There is never anything wrong with me. I am who I am. And when I begin to give myself that presence, is exactly what we've talked about on this podcast. When I give myself that presence, I remember more of who I am. So thank you so much for being with me today, honey. It's been a really beautiful conversation.
Thank you for creating the Beauty Way, and may we all live a little more of that every single day. Thank you.
Yes, imagine. Thank you. Here we go.